Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 378 of the All Dolphins podcast. We are Tuesday, October 8th, 2024, day of the NHL regular season opener in North America. They started in Europe last week. Florida Panthers will unveil their Stanley Cup banner before they play the Boston. Wait a second. This is not a Panther podcast. No, this is a Miami Dolphins podcast. The Dolphins conducting their one and only practice of their bye week today. When there was big news around the AFC East, we certainly need to discuss how that affects the Miami Dolphins, because it could, and also what else is going on in terms of the teams that they will be facing in 2024, where their schedule, I would make the argument, that looks so daunting down the stretch, maybe not so much right now. And to do that, to help me do that, Perk, long time no see, as in an hour or so.
Yeah. I thought I was on the champion show, so when you were talking about the Panthers, I was rolling with it. Come on, champion show.
Maybe we'll be doing that next year for the Dolphins.
There's positive thinking, baby. I like that.
Okay, and before Dolphin fans watching this, and by the way, if you're watching, appreciate that very, very much.
Yes.
No, it does not seem likely at this time. Yes, it may sound completely absurd to say this. We're still 5 games out of 17, and I'm no math major, but I believe that's a little less than 33%. So can we chill on just already giving up on the season, particularly when your starting quarterback appears on the verge of returning? Am I right, Chris Perkins?
You are right. Look, I will say this, that the 41 carries for 193 yards, and we'll get into this later, was encouraging. We can do it now.
We're going to do something.
Look, it was encouraging on a few fronts, right? The 41 carries, that's a commitment to the run game. 193 yards. They got those inside and outside. And I think it's a good sign to Mike McDaniel that there's another way to win. Now, you probably aren't going to beat Buffalo. You probably aren't going to get 41 carries against Buffalo, but you have something else to lean on until you can hit that deep throw from Tua to Tyreek. You've got another way to survive, another way to chew up some clock, another way to protect the lead. Use it.
Without question. And I think Raheem Mostert's performance was very encouraging. Teron Armstead,
yes,
as we see, he can make a difference when he's in the lineup. It's not the same when he's not there. That's just a fact. And
Jalen Wright.
I mean, that kid looks good.
Yeah.
That kid looks very good.
Yep.
And yes, we have to understand. And I did a national power rankings roundup for the Dolphins on Miami Dolphins on SI.com. And those national media folks were not impressed by the Dolphins beating the Patriots. And maybe this is where I can hear Dolphin fans right now saying, that's right, they beat a crap team. You need to chill the hell out. They didn't do anything, and they barely won on top of that. Completely understood. The Dolphins right now are still in the process of trying to find their game. If we think the Dolphins have they haven't played a good game yet. I wouldn't even say the Jacksonville game. They played a good quarter against Jacksonville. Outside of that, it was meh. It was tremendously meh. Yep. And since then, they haven't played a great quarter, even what they did against New England, because even after they took the lead on that drive, which, by the way, necessitated a brain fart of a DPI on 3rd and 13 when Tyler Huntley was about to hit Raheem Mostert for a 6-7 yard pass, and the drive was over at midfield, and they would have punted. Even after that, the Dolphins watched the New England Patriots, drive all the way back down the field and come within a half a foot, literally half a foot, because there was the heel that went out of bounds, from New England retaking the lead. So nobody is cashing in our tickets or making reservations for the Super Bowl for the Dolphins to be involved. But again, this is a team that is still looking to find its game. And maybe this is the year where it's a reverse. Instead of starting strong and petering out at the end, maybe this year they start off very sluggish, and then all their injury issues come at the front end of the season, and then down the stretch, they're rolling a little bit.
Yeah, Poop, the thing that I do really like about the run stat, the 41 for 193, is that that's something that travels, right? Goes on the road. It goes in cold weather. Like, we can keep going down that list, right, against good teams. like that run game, if McDaniel sticks with it and if they try to develop it, it could be a huge, huge help. Now, I'm not saying it's going to get them to the Super Bowl or it's going to correct their 4-10 December, January record, but it helps. It gets you closer to where you want to be. And I will give the Dolphins credit for winning a road game. As McDaniel said, they dug this thing out. It's a badge of courage and a badge of honor. No, it wasn't pretty. No, they probably wouldn't have beaten anybody aside from the Patriots on Sunday. Let's be honest about this. But they dug out the victory, and you've got a starting point now. You finally got a little bit of footing, which is especially important going into the bye week. You didn't want to go into the bye week on a 4-game losing streak and with a 1-4 record. I mean, I don't think Cincinnati is very comfortable with its 1-4 record, even though they've got their superstar quarterback there. 2-3, a world of difference from 2-3 and 1-4. So a tip of the cap to the Dolphins, right? I'm not wearing a cap. I'm not going to take my hat off. But yes, thank you. A tip of the cap to them. It's better to win to against a bad team than lose to a bad team, as we saw against Tennessee, right?
Yeah, and I think 5 weeks in, not that we have a totality of the picture of what these 2024 Dolphins are going to be. I think we have a pretty good idea that the defense is going to be solid.
Yes.
Not great, not special.
Right.
But good enough to keep the team in games. And the big question is going to be, can the offense ever come close to regaining the form we saw last year when it led the NFL in total offense? I'm not saying it's not going to lead the NFL total offense because they're starting way behind the 8 ball right now. Mm-hmm. But can it get close to that type of level of play? And then once we get to December, and when this is going to be our next topic, that can it, continue and raise its level of play to match the different style of game. And this is not just me talking. Andrew Whitworth, yep. Amazon, former Rams and Bengals offensive tackle, basically said it when I asked a question about the Dolphins before the Thursday night game against Buffalo, that they're basically 2 seasons. The first half is basically loose, playing in hot weather. This is where your track teams can thrive. And the second half of the season is more ugly football, where generally speaking, your more physical teams will win.
Yep. And here's another thing that the Dolphins hopefully discovered against New England. I wrote a column today on sunsentinel.com about the Dolphins, yes, who are concerned about Hurricane Milton. And, Marcus May's family is up in Melbourne and he can't get his mom to leave. He left today after practice to help her put shutters on the house. Jonnu Smith is from Ocala. His family is going to ride it out also. But what I'm getting to is I told Jonnu after I was done talking to him, I shook hands and I was like, look, I'm glad they finally discovered you this week. I was waiting on that. Mm-hmm. He smiled. He didn't say it, but that's something else, Poop, that, you didn't just discover the run game, right? You discovered Jonnu Smith. Hey, you can use him in December and January. So that's another thing the Dolphins discovered with this victory, and something that I hope Mike McDaniel remembers in November, December, and January, that, hey, you've got a tight end, you've got a run game, use both of them.
No, without question. And another factor, somebody else who could chip in and add yet another dimension to the offense at some point, is Odell Beckham Jr. We spoke to Odell in the locker room today, and he basically made the point he was feeling sore after his first game back. And he talked about, and this you hear players say that all the time, getting himself back in football game shape, which is not the same thing as doing conditioning. So the fact that he was on the field for 11 offensive snaps, again, it was his first game of the season. Not necessarily shocking. He's not going to play 11 snaps on offense the rest of the way. And at some point, he's going to make a contribution, probably more so when Tua comes back. And the expectation, again, is still that Tua is going to come back because they're going to be chucking it more than they are right now with Tyler Huntley. So, okay, let's move on to the big news of the day around the NFL on Tuesday. The New York Jets have fired head coach Robert Saleh 5 games into the season after their 23-17 loss against the Minnesota Vikings in London. The Jets do not have a bye. coming out of the London game, like a lot of teams do. They're playing the Buffalo Bills on Monday Night Football at MetLife Stadium. If they win, they will take over first place in the AFC East by virtue of the head-to-head win against the Bills, which makes you wonder, damn, that's weird timing on this firing. Because the Bills, and we're going to get to the Bills too, the Bills have issues right now. And if you were to tell me it's a lock that the Bills are going to win that game, I'm telling you, no, it's not a lock. The Bills right now have problems. They cannot protect Josh Allen. So were you surprised, as I was, in terms, not necessarily that Robert Saleh should have been untouchable, but the timing of it is kind of weird?
But Poop, I think we both made a big deal about that look between Aaron Rodgers and Robert Saleh, didn't we? I think that was you when they had that strange look, and some people were kind of like, that's no big deal, and it's like, that doesn't look right. This is a good moment, and Aaron Rodgers has this look like, don't touch me, when Saleh is going to dap him up. I thought that was a problem. From that standpoint, I'm not surprised. Another standpoint, you remember when Philbin got fired coming from England, I think he was like the fourth straight years that a coach got fired losing that game, or 3 straight years or something like that.
But
yes,
very quickly, the Dolphins had a bye.
They did. You're right. But the timing is kind of strange. But Poop, if you had the sense in that building, and I use those two terms, in the same sentence with the New York Jets, sense and building, that they don't seem to go together. There's no sense in that building. But if you had the sense in that building that you could still save the season, then do it right now, and maybe you can kind of get like a Man Campbell bounce that the Dolphins had. You remember the shotgun alley and the one, nice. Right? And maybe the feeling is we can still save the season. To me, that would justify the timing of this. You are in a crap division, right? You still have a chance, but aside from all of that, the timing is kind of strange because there is still time for Saleh to save the season. But maybe things were just so bad that they figured there's no way this guy can do it. Maybe somebody else can.
Correct. And I'm looking at the Jets here, and their bye week doesn't come until week 12. And maybe the owner, Woody Johnson, decided, I don't like doing it during a game week, but am I going to wait 11 weeks to do it? The season might slip away by then.
Right.
So I guess. And but this is like, again, same situation. You mentioned Joe Philbin before. This was 2015. At the end of 2014, I know all of us in the media, I know myself, I was like, why are they bringing him back?
Yeah.
And then if you remember that they have a great, exciting win against Minnesota the next to last week of the regular season, which in a phenomenal game, fantastic finish, 37-35. I think the teams combined for like 40 points in the fourth quarter. Yeah. Except the Dolphins were already out of the playoffs, so it was like no big whoop. And in the locker room afterwards, Stephen Ross is telling all the media, gathering us and saying, have an early Christmas present for you guys. You won't have to deal with a coaching search because Philbin's coming back. Yeah. Well, Philbin comes back, and then 4 games in, as you mentioned, he's gone. And another more recent example, this one in LA, where after the playoff collapse of the Chargers against Jacksonville, kind of could not be more crystal clear. This guy is not a good coach. They should not bring him back. They bring him back, and lo and behold, he gets fired halfway through the next season. Usually when all the signs indicate that a team should fire a coach, maybe the signs are there for a reason, no?
Yeah. And Poop, is the Jets' job a good job, Poop? I mean, I don't know how much. Yeah, exactly. I don't know how much real talent you have there. Aaron Rodgers is so-so. Garrett Wilson is so-so. Breece Hall is so-so. Sauce Gardner is a baller. Quinnen Williams is a baller. I'm probably forgetting a couple of others. But
Williams is a good player.
Yeah, but this roster is not – it's not even as good as the Dolphins roster, quite honestly. That's up for debate, but I don't think it is. But whatever. Neither of them smack of championship, even AFC championship. I don't think that the Jets is such a great job.
Well, part of my reason for agreeing with you there is is based on all the reports that come out of New York, is Woody Johnson is not necessarily a great owner. And if you look, generally speaking, you look at the teams that are good year in and year out for a long time. Look at ownership. Generally, that's a good place to start. Stable ownership, guys who let their people do their thing, who hire the right people, and the Jets. We talk about the Dolphins having not won a playoff game since 2000. The Jets haven't been to the playoffs since 2010.
Yeah,
I mean that's a long time.
Yep.
And what's the common denominator? Well, it's the owner. So the Jets right now, second in total defense, by the way. Okay, so there is some talent, second in the NFL in pass defense. So to me, it's a good defense. They have been so bad on offense. And is firing Salah really going to make a difference? I think a lot of people were very surprised that they would bring in. Well, no, they weren't surprised. They were questioning the wisdom of bringing in Nathaniel Hackett to be the offensive coordinator, even though it was inevitable because he's tied with Aaron Rodgers, and Aaron Rodgers kind of sort of seemingly calls the shots over there. So this is relevant to the Dolphins because the Dolphins played them twice in their 6-game stretch to end the season, which was a stretch that everybody thought was brutal, which is Green Bay, Jets at home, at Houston, San Francisco at home, at Cleveland, and at Jets. Now, the question is going to be, what do the Jets look like under the new head coach? The interim head coach is going to be Jeff Ulbrich, who had Tip Ryan from the Dolphins media relations department indicated to us was on the staff of the Atlanta Falcons with Mike McDaniel back in the day. And for those who might remember this, Jeff Ulbrich was a linebacker for the 49ers. Mm-hmm. What are the Jets going to look like? Well, offensively, they can't look much worse. And yet, they almost came back from a 17-0 deficit to beat the Vikings. If it wasn't for a miscommunication, bit of contact down the field, that led to Stephon Gilmore getting that late interception. So I'm not counting out the Jets yet as a potential AFC East contender, again, because the Bills right now cannot protect Josh Allen. The pressure rate on him the past 2 games has been absurd. He doesn't have any time. And then there's the issue. And, oh, by the way, yes, I'm glad I thought of this because there was somebody in the comments who asked me to address the issue of Josh Allen, concussions, and him being allowed to play in the game. Okay. And I would hope Dolphin fans don't look at this as like the NFL's favoring the Bills because they're keeping Josh Allen in the game. Because the other way of looking at it is they're jeopardizing his health more than they would be Tua's if they pull Tua out of the game. So I don't know that they're not doing Josh Allen a favor if they allow him to play if he's indeed concussed. Now, I'm not familiar enough with the mechanics of what went down if he was evaluated for a concussion in the blue tent. He said after the game, I rolled my ankle on the play. I don't know if you saw the replay. Sure looked like he banged the hell out of his head on the turf too. So, and at some point, he can't just keep taking all those shots. I mean, he's getting pounded back there.
He is. Look, we don't know what this division is right now. I think the Patriots could even play spoiler. I mean, didn't they beat Cincinnati in the opener? I don't think Jamar Chase was there, but they could play a spoiler role. I'm not saying they could jump up and win 9 or 10 games.
They could win 3 games in the regular season, sure.
But look, they have beat Cincinnati. They almost beat the Dolphins. They could definitely play a spoiler role, and just like Tennessee did last year, just like Tennessee might have done this year for the Dolphins, just like Tennessee did last year for Jacksonville. So, this division, I think, still has a lot of surprises up its sleeve. I do think that with Buffalo, they're going to feel the losses that they've had. You know, Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer and Mitch Morse and all of these guys that they've lost. It's going to leave a mark, but we just don't know how they're going to recover. Are they going to be a 9-win team and get a wild card? Are they going to be an 8-win team and miss the playoffs? do they win 10 games and win the AFC East? I really honestly don't know. I can't tell from where we sit right now how Buffalo is going to look in December. And the same actually goes for the Dolphins, and the same goes for, well, we know the Patriots are going to suck. But the Jets, I don't think the Jets are headed for the playoffs at this point. But again, who knows, right? Who knows? So I think this division, there's still a whole lot of unknowns in this division.
Yeah, and the thing with the Bills is a little bit baffling. And for those watching, Dolphin fans, if you're wondering why we're spending a lot of time with the Dolphins, on the Bills, it's the team the Dolphins have to catch up to win the AFC East. Yeah. And no, in no way, shape, or form should anybody think, forget the division. Dolphins have looked so bad so far. They're a game out of first place.
Right.
Okay. Also, as I tweeted out Sunday, they have the same record as the San Francisco 49ers. Anybody really panicking about the 49ers not making the playoffs? Okay. That out of the way, if the Bills don't find a way to protect Josh Allen, and maybe there's something to the idea that if opposing defenses have figured out the way to stop the Dolphins, maybe the same can be said for opposing defenses having figured out the Bills, because in the first 3 games, and I did a story on this in my weekly NFL observations, again, always with Miami Dolphins angles. Check it out on Miami Dolphins on SI.com. The first 3 games, he was barely touched.
Right.
Josh Allen had the best protection in the NFL, and it wasn't even close. The last 2 games, he's got somebody draped all over him pretty much as soon as he drops back. And that's a problem. And I don't know if part of it here is that his receivers are not getting open very quickly. Right. And maybe this is where this whole notion of, the wide receiver by committee spread the ball to everybody is all great and dandy. If you have a bunch of 2s and 3s, what was that famous Jeff Ireland quote from Hard Knocks 2012? We have a bunch of 3s and 4s. We don't have any 1s and 2s, whatever it was.
Yep.
That could be the case in Buffalo, which is why they're mentioning as a potential dark horse candidate to make a move for Devontae Adams if the Raiders are willing to eat some of his contract, or he could wind up with the Jets. Who knows? But the Bills right now don't look as good as they did entering the season. They don't look half as good as they did in week 2.
They've got to figure it out, Poop. They've still got Knox and Kincaid and Cook, and the big thing is they have Josh Allen. But look, the Dolphins have had serious injury problems already. Nobody else in this division has, right? Am I correct in saying that? Because the Dolphins have gone without Tua, without Raheem for 3 games, without Tehran for 1 game. We all know the list. If something like this happens to another team in the division, the Dolphins have a chance to catch up. That's why you keep chopping wood. That's why you have to keep winning. And I don't care if you beat New England 15-10 and you look like crap doing it, you won. You're still in the race. Don't eliminate yourself. That's the big thing, especially in this crappy AFC East. Anything can happen. Just keep chopping wood. And, hey, on January 6th, you could end up in first place with 10 wins. Who knows? Anything can happen. Keep your head down. Keep working.
Yeah, no, without question. Let's take care of some bookkeeping here. As we mentioned earlier, the Dolphins had their 1 practice this week of the bye week. They're off the rest of the week. They'll be back at work on Monday, off Tuesday, and then begin their week of preparation for the next game, which is against the Indianapolis Colts at Lucas Oil Stadium. We don't know exactly at this point who's going to play quarterback. It's going to depend on Anthony Richardson's health, because Shane Steichen, their head coach, has said if Richardson is healthy, he's our quarterback. And I can understand if the reflex reaction is, why wouldn't he go with Flacco, who's been great? And he has. His passer rating was in triple digits each of his 2 games, 121.5 on Sunday in a loss, but they lost because their defense couldn't play. Speaking of injuries, they have a ton of injuries on defense. They got 3/4 of their defensive line out with injuries, including DeForest Buckner, who's a very, very good defensive tackle. And, oh, by the way, former Dolphins defensive tackle Raekwon Davis, by all statistical evidence and appearances, is not making much of an impact over there, for what that's worth. But if Richardson is healthy, he's going to be the one who the Dolphins are going to face, and he's the 4th overall pick in 2023. So you can't blame the Colts for putting him back in there. I think Richardson presents a different set of problems because he's a great runner, along with having a really, really good arm, can make some crazy throws, but he's kind of erratic, and he's also not built for this daredevil style of play.
Yeah, and look, from the Dolphins' standpoint, yes, you've got a young quarterback. Let's confuse the heck out of him. Let's change up our fronts. Let's move Jalen Ramsey all over the place. Let's blitz them on occasion. Anthony Weaver, I think, has done a really, really good job in dealing with what he has. When you don't have a 100% Jalen Phillips, you don't have Bradley Chubb at all, and you've got guys in and out of the lineup, right? Jordan Poyer and David Long, Kendall Fuller. How about that? I got it this time. Kendall Fuller. I always call him Jordan Fuller. How about that? After saying Jordan Poyer, too, I had to stop for a second. You guys don't know that inside joke. I'm always calling Kendall Fuller Jordan Fuller. But, I think Weaver has done a really, really nice job mixing and matching his talent through 5 games. I mean, this is a first-year defensive coordinator. He's not really sure what he has yet, but he's done a nice job. So that encourages me when it comes to facing a young quarterback like Anthony Richardson, that the defense can probably hold its own. I have a lot of confidence in them. Really, it's going to be Mike McDaniel. What did you learn from 41 for 193 and discovering Jonnu Smith? Do those lessons carry over?
Yeah, and let's understand it's not going to be as simple as let's run it 41 times. We'll get 103 yards every game. No. And the fact that we're playing an opponent that wasn't going to score a whole lot of points, even when the Dolphins were trailing, they could afford to keep running the ball more so than if they were playing a high-powered offense, which will be the case when they play the Colts, who can put points on the board, even though right now they're dealing with the injury to Richardson, which may or may not be a good thing from their standpoint. Sorry. And also Jonathan Taylor's got an ankle sprain. So back to my bookkeeping here. So today, those who did not practice or not spotted by the media during the open portion, because we won't get an injury report. There'll be no injury report this week since the Dolphins don't have a game. Those not spotted: Calais Campbell, David Long Jr., Emmanuel Ogbah, Jalen Ramsey, Javon Holland, Jordan Poyer, Kendall Fuller. And on offense, the only 2 who were missing were Malik Washington and Devon Achane. Quick notes on all of those guys as far as what we know in terms of injuries. We know Achane is in concussion protocol. We know Malik Washington's dealt with a quad injury the entire season so far, though he has played the past 2 games. So I don't know if it's just being extra careful here, give him more time. And it wasn't a very significant practice. Holland is dealing with the broken bone in his hand issue. Jordan Poyer has a shin injury. Kendall Fuller was out of the game for 5 plays against New England on Sunday. The injury was not reported in the press box. Based on the replay, I'm thinking it may have been a stinger. I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV. That's what it looked like. Jalen Ramsey popped up on the injury report Friday, even though he played. I believe it was a knee issue. Long dealt with the hamstring. Campbell always gets a vet rest day on Wednesday anyway. And then the last one where I have no clue, maybe you can tell me here, is Emmanuel Ogbah. I don't know that
he might be a vet rest, but I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, no issue with this. This is not a game week, so no problem there. Any final thoughts, Perk, before we wrap this up?
No, not really. I thought the team was in pretty good spirits today, as they should be. They're coming off of a victory. They're going into the bye week. I still think that, I did a story last week that talking to players, I think Mike McDaniel has not lost this locker room. I still think he has control. And I say this a lot. I think that this team has a good fighting spirit. They're not going to give up. They fight till the end. They're limited in talent in some ways, maybe limited in coaching in some ways. But the players, I really like these players. They don't quit. I think they have really good depth. I think the depth is what's gotten them to the playoffs the last couple of years. They haven't won playoff games because their top players have not come through. Tua, Tyreek, Waddle, Mostert, Mike McDaniel. They have not. I would venture to guess, Poop, just off the top of my head, the player who has been the best in the big games is Zach Sealer. That's just off the top of my head. Just the interceptions and the sacks and things like that. Maybe a touchdown or two. I know he definitely had a touchdown in that Buffalo playoff game, that 34-31 game. I think it was a 5-yard interception, a fumble return for a touchdown. Zach Sealer comes through. That the other guys, that's why they have not advanced in the playoffs. But I think their depth, the injury problems they've had, their depth always helps them get has helped in the previous 2 years under Mike McDaniel I'm talking about. I like this team spirit. They've just got to stay in it, and hopefully they can find some footing and discover themselves this month and figure out some other ways to win until the Tua to Tyreek, Tua to Waddle connection comes back.
So if they have to find themselves this month, that's 2 games that they have to do it because they only have 2 more games in October. Is that what you're saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying, Poop. That's exactly it. 2 games to find yourself. That's my whole point of the show. They've got 2 games to find themselves. Yes. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
At Indianapolis and versus the Arizona Cardinals. Okay. And then even then, this is where we talked about, then it's at Buffalo, the rematch against the Bills. And then the Monday night game against the LA Rams, who don't look nearly as good as we thought they were going to be. However, by that time, they very well may have Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back in the lineup. But their problem right now is more on the defensive side. By the way, did you know that one of their part-time starter, one of their rotational players on the defensive line is none other than Neville Gallimore?
Oh, really? Wow.
How about that?
Interesting.
Of the Dolphins. Yeah. Okay, so that's going to wrap it up. Thanks, everyone, for watching. As always, please like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Appreciate every single one of you watching, tuning in, listening to to Perk and I, or Hyde, or Levick, or whoever's on the show, babbling away, talking Dolphins. Hope you enjoy it, and have a good rest of the day.